Bill, thanks for sitting down with me today. Great to see you.
No, thank you, Shawn. Thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Bill, you're the head of the Australian Seed Federation, and the Australian industry is hosting us here at the World Seed Congress. And it's the pinnacle industry point for seed in Australia. And I'm wondering, can you give us a little bit of a highlight reel on how does the ASF guide the seed industry in Australia? It's a multi-billion-dollar sector here, and I'm just curious, how do you slide into that mix?
I think here in Brisbane, as the theme is, as innovation shines, and everyone knows that Australia bats above its weight in innovations. Think of things like inventing penicillin, Wi-Fi, Google Maps. The same is exactly the same for the Australian seed industry. We bat well above our weight. We are a very small industry, 1%, but in terms of the output, in terms of quality food, both to be consumed domestically, where we have at least 1 in 6 people in Australia employed in the food industry, and also sending high quality produce exported to the rest of the world.
You've been the CEO of ASF now for 7 years, as I understand it. Can you give me a little bit of a snapshot of how that 7 years has gone?
I came into the industry with a little bit of seed knowledge because I came from a forage seed company. And before that, I was an agricultural scientist working mostly in livestock and production. But I think in the last 7 years, I should have been awarded a degree in vegetable seed pathology, because one of the constants that we've had since I've joined is certainly increased regulation for biosecurity, particularly on vegetable seeds, because as a country we import just about all our vegetable seeds. So certainly that's been a constant throughout what we do. But I think of other innovations that Australia have got, and one that I'm fond of is the ute, or the utility. People mightn't know, but Australia invented the ute, and it was invented by a farmer's wife who said, I want a car that I can drive to church in on Sunday, and I want something I can take the pigs to market on Wednesday. And I think in terms of our contribution, we've been, as an association, we've been versatile in being able to do that. So firstly, in terms of promoting the professionalism of our industry, and we are very professional, through things like Know Before You Sow campaign, introducing a pasture database, but also being the go-to for a lot of regulators and having a reputation that people seek us out on things like breeding innovation, biosecurity, IP enforcement.
Right. Excellent. And so those are definitely some of the topics that we're talking about here at the World Seed Congress, and I know that will be, it's on the topic of every seed person's tongue at this time. Where do you see, if you use your little crystal ball, where do you see Australia going as it relates to new breeding techniques and plant breeding innovation?
Yeah, I think we'll take a steady as it goes approach, but fall on the side of something that is workable for industry, but also meets our regulatory requirements. And I know we're working hard now, so we're working, while not ahead of the ball, we're sort of keeping ahead of it. And I'm conscious that what we do in Australia, other people in the region look to, because we are highly respected in that area, and we have a world-class regulator. So people are looking at us, and I think we'll make some fairly good decisions in relation to that.
Perfect. What would you say is, as it relates to the Australian seed industry, the biggest challenge that the industry is facing right now?
One of the biggest challenges, I think, is potentially a PBR law that has no teeth. We have good PBR legislation, but it really doesn't have any teeth at the moment, and the ASF has worked hard over the last 10 years trying to increase or bulk up PBR legislation, and I think we've been successful now that there's new legislation either being passed or coming in that will allow disputes to be heard in a lower circuit court of the federal court, and also introduction of a information notice system. And those two things, and having exemplary damages and increasing fines, will put us in a position where we'll actually be able to get some teeth into it, and bring about some and heal the growth in PBR breaches that's occurring simply because it is just too hard at the moment to enforce.
What do you think perhaps the world could learn from this conversation that's happening domestically in Australia right now as it relates to intellectual property and protection around those pieces? The conversation's happening now, and what could the rest of the world learn from that domestic conversation?
I think we need to develop a good rapport with the legislators and then work closely with them and tell our story about what the seed industry needs in terms of protection, and spell out further to end users the consequences and the risks that are taken by simply not abiding by, in our case, the PBR Act. Right. And we're sure that we have farmers who actually just don't understand the consequences, and certainly we have people who are willingly abusing the PBR, because at the moment they feel there's not that great a risk of being caught or penalised for doing so.
Globally, one of the pieces that Australia is very well known for is their forage genetics. Can you talk a little bit about why is Australia dominating so much in a lot of these varieties, as they're not just in Australia but around the world, being exported around the world and outperforming varieties from everywhere?
I think it stems from the fact that we have a very diverse climate, and by necessity we've had to be innovative, and that innovation shines through in a lot of our breeding of our forage varieties, and to be able to meet the needs of a varied climate means that we're also in a great position to produce forage varieties that suit the rest of the world.
I probably should have started with a congratulations to you, because Australia, I think, will be very proud of the impact that they've had with hosting the ISF here this week in Brisbane. So congratulations to you and your countrymen, I think, who are out in full force to support the ISF initiative. What would be one of the biggest learnings you've had in this exercise of working probably for multiple years in generating this opportunity?
That if you can surround yourself with great people who are enthusiastic, and I don't want to mention names, but certainly Alicia Lockley has been a terrific help, and then certainly building relationships with the ISF and everyone else that puts it together. And we've been supported locally by a lot of our members, and that's shown up in the attendance. We've got over 100 Australian members attending ISF, but certainly be prepared to work and be flexible with the arrangements. So don't be too hard on what you think is going to be right. Listen to other people, and surround yourself with a great team. We put together what I think is going to be a fantastic Congress.
Awesome. Thank you very much again, Bill. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Shawn.